To Be an Adventurer, authored by Gail O'Vaughn, narrated by Gail O'Vaughn. Chapter 10, Someone Special. The young girl walks into the room and straight to Semo, not paying Rota any mind. "Yes, Semo?" she asks. Rota notices the girl trying her best to ignore him. She must be super shy, like I was at that age, he thought. Semo turns to Mimi and begins to explain the situation. "I was just showing my friend Rota here. All their book needs to work is a little bit of mana. Would you like to show him?" The pitch in Semo's voice raised, as if he were talking to a toddler. He obviously saw her as a kid, despite her only being a few years younger than him and Rota. Mimi nods her head and begins to walk over to the book. All the way there, the couple of feet that the journey was, she was looking at the floor, still ignoring Rota. She places her hand on the book and the runes begin to glow. The book fluttered open and hues of orange flew into the sky. Motoko was standing there with them. "Hello, Rota." Tears began to stream down Rota's face. He never thought he would ever see his father again. Rota ran up to embrace Motoka. The projection was displaced by Rota's body, like a ripple when a leaf falls into a pond. Just like that, Rota was reminded that Motoka was gone, and that all of this journey was just to obtain a temporary fix for his feelings of loss. The rest of the projection plays out with Rota crying at the feet of his deceased father. Once it was all over, and the colors of the world returned back to normal, Rota turned toward Semo. Semo had been crying as well, though Mimi was still stone-faced as ever. The group takes a moment of silence for Motoka. No one wants to speak after the emotional scene of Motoka's last goodbye to his son. The awkward air in the room felt especially dry, considering Rota and Mimi don't know each other. Rota knew it was up to him to break the ice. Rota walked up to Mimi and said, "Hi, I'm Rota, what's your name?" Immediately as it came out of his mouth, he knew the mistake he had made. They both already knew each other's name. "I sure hope that Mimi is one of Semo's nicknames," Rota thought. Mimi just looked at Rota. Rota felt embarrassed. "I guess it's not." "It's Mikafa," she said, unable to make eye contact. Rota had no clue what to say. Usually the other person helps with the conversation after the introduction. He decided his best bet was to take after his father a little and be silly. Motoka could make a brick wall respond if he just kept talking its ear off. "Mikafa? That's a bit of a weird name, isn't it?" Rota smiled. He wasn't lying, though. Rota had never heard of that name before. It sounded somewhat foreign, but Mikafa looked like she was from Lare. "Yeah, it is," Mikafa responded. Rota frowned, as this gave him nothing to work with. In order to stop Rota from questioning her further, Semo interjects. "It's a nickname. My nerd of a boss gave it to her." Rota waited for more elaboration, but it didn't come. It's unlike Semo to leave a sentence that dry. Usually he would find something to ramble about. Should I ask him more about it? Rota thought. Rota looked into Semo's eyes. They were help-me eyes. The kind of eyes Semo would use when he needed out of a situation. They were unforgettable. Even after all of this time, Rota still remembers the first time he saw them. Both he and Semo were 12 years old. Semo was trying to sneak a book of runic out of the restricted area of the Academy's library. Semo got cornered by a librarian and gave Rota his help-me eyes. Rota took the blame for sneaking the book by saying that he paid Semo to do it. Semo was glad that his overly strict father wasn't told of this rule-breaking, that he gave Rota 4 silver pieces. That was the most money Rota had ever seen up until that point. Rota, realizing that Semo was using his help-me eyes, looked back at Mikafa. She still couldn't look Rota in the eyes. She wasn't even looking him in the face. This must be something close to her. She probably didn't want to talk about it, Rota thought. He didn't prompt her for any information after that point, though he still had a lot of questions. How was Mikafa related to the shop owner? Mikafa surely isn't runic, or Lare, so what does it mean? How was she able to use mana? But Rota couldn't feel bad about all these secrets, especially since he was doing the same thing to Rungar, hiding his true self. Someone decided it was best for him to guide the conversation from now on. "So Roro, you never told me what you've been doing lately." Rota was relieved that Semo wanted to carry the conversation from now on. "I still really want to be an adventurer, but the purple roses just don't seem like a good idea after my dad's death." "The Flaming Lords are great. You should join them. They're local, at least local here. They have incredible internship programs. They're just the best," Semo exclaimed. Rota had to cut Semo off. Whoa, slow down." Mikafa smiled a bit. "It seems like even the people around here get tired of his rants from time to time," Rota thought while looking at Mikafa. "I already have an adventure going on. I'm traveling with a Tikarian orc to his homeland." Semo gave Rota a strange look. "Orc? I know it's hard to believe, but there are orcs in Lare." "No, not that. Everyone knows that several orcish tribes, including most of the Tikar tribe, have been part of Lare for 80 years. "Everyone?" Rota looks towards Mikafa, who shakes her head in disagreement. Anyways, the problem is that your grandfather, Oji, massacred orcs by the thousands. That's how he got his title Oji Harion, by turning Harion, the heart of the biggest orcish tribe at the time, to rubble. That battle almost single-handedly ended the Great Prairie War. Rota instantly felt stupid. He had heard stories of the legendary Harion in the academy, but had never really listened to them. Rota knew who his grandfather pretended to be, though he wasn't even half as legendary when you were a member of his family. Oji had the same drawbacks of being an adventurer that Motoka did. Rota didn't mind that Oji was never around. His father wasn't either. But when Motoka was in town, Rota was always able to have fun with him. Oji always seemed to be busy with work. Rota thought of Oji as a very distant relative. He didn't realize until this very moment just how close they really were. Rota felt sick. Maybe Rungar has a right to hide all of this stuff from him. Maybe he's not trustworthy. Rota sat down for a moment to collect his thoughts. After a minute, he looks back up towards Semo and says, I just won't tell him then. Semo knew Rota couldn't lie. Good luck with that, Roro. Yeah. With all of that thinking, Rota knew he needed to reunite with Rungar soon. I guess I should be leaving soon. Semo didn't want Rota to leave. Are you sure there isn't anything else you need me to look at? Rota pulled out the knife that he had gotten from the old man. He forgot he had it until now. He hands it to Semo. Semo looks at it and squints. He pulls up a chair next to Rota and continues to examine it. It looks like it has an activation requirement, but I can't tell what it is. It says something about the blood of statues, whatever that means. Mimi, can you try to activate it? Mikafa nods her head and walks over to the knife. She places her hand on it. Like the book, the runic on the knife begins to glow sunset orange. As Mimi keeps her hand on the knife, the runic gets brighter. Suddenly, the runic dimmed down to a dark blood red. The color radiated from Mikafa's eyes. She made a quick glance towards Semo. In that instant, he knew something was very wrong. A shockwave erupted from the knife, sending everyone onto the floor. The box of Semo's things burst into flames. The loud whizzing of mana through runic pierced the walls of the break room. The whole building began to shake, as a loud, deafening boom jolts what seemed like the whole world. Semo jumps into action, grabbing Mimi in his arms. Follow me! He screamed, bursting through the door of the break room. Rota was taken aback by Semo's initiative. He never imagined Semo carrying anything over 40 pounds, especially in an emergency. Rota attempted to follow Semo back into the store, but was petrified by what he saw on the other side of the door. It was bright. Rota closed his eyes, but the reds, blues, and greens being emitted off of the runic still pierced into his skull. The sounds that assaulted his ears earlier that day were 1,000,000 times worse now. Heat poured over his body, as if he were being touched by the sun itself. Fire! Rota thought. Rota fell to his knees. He could no longer continue. His senses were caving in around him. Semo's voice cried out above everything else. Come on! We've got to go! Rota crawled forward, unable to stand with the feeling of his surroundings crushing him. Rota's left knee rammed into something. A frigid shock turned his body to ice. He bit his cheek and pulled away. He continued another few feet forward. An object whistled through the air, crashing into Rota's arm. The pain radiated through Rota's right side. His arm seized as he fell to the floor. I'm done. I can't do this. This is where I die. Rota laid there, accepting that the task in front of him was impossible. Just then, something grabbed him by the waist and heaved him into the air. He was being carried. Once he made it outside, he was placed onto the ground. He opened his eyes to see who his rescuer was. It was Refren. How did he pick me up like that? Rota thought. He's my size. He must be super strong. As quickly as Rota opened his eyes to see his noble champion, Refren left, back into the building to do more saving. Rota looked at the building, now ablaze, and felt sad. For as much as he didn't like the building, it was Semo's home and future. Without this, Semo might be out of a job, and he might not be able to complete his apprenticeship. Rota scanned the crowded streets of Make for Semo or Mikafa. Rota sees Semo talking with the owner and approaches them. Before making it all the way to them, he notices something. Someone sitting alone. Mikafa. Rota approaches her, figuring that Semo needs some time to get his affairs with the owner in order. She is sitting on the curb, with her head between her legs. She was crying. Hey, Rota said, getting her attention. She looks up towards Rota. For the first time, their eyes made contact. Though inflamed and irritated by the tears streaming down her face, they were beautiful. They were emerald green and shined like sunset on the ocean. It reminded him of some old folklore that he had learned in the academy. People in Larre used to believe that people with emerald eyes were holy, because no evil spirit would be able to take over a head with eyes that pretty. He looked down at her. Are you alright? He asked. No, I'm a monster. Look what I've done, she screams. Rota has nothing to say to that. He doesn't even understand what happened. Rota knew better than to argue with her about this. He just took a seat on the curb beside her. Whatever it is you did, it's extraordinary, Rota said. While Rota was comforting Mimi, Simo was confronting his boss. His boss was standing in the street, watching his building crumble. Simo stood behind him, scared to see his face. Sir. The man stood there. Sir? I thought we're beyond that level of formality, Simo. Simo looked down and adjusted his glasses. You see, considering the circumstances, I thought things were different. Why? Did you do something wrong? Well, no, but... You see, my shop was nothing before you. You helped build this, son. You should be more than this, same as me. Simo stood there, watching the flames consume everything that he had poured his heart and soul into. The countless hours of study and inventing are erased from history. This building was his everything. The building finally collapsed under its own weight, and fell into a smoldering pile. What's next, Opaj? We rebuild. I rebuild. You're done. Your apprenticing is over. I ran out of things to teach you long ago. Congrats, you're now a runesmith. Simo Makor. Simo wrapped his arm around Opaj. Thank you. All of your inventions are still yours. Come by sometime for the royalties, and wherever you go. Take me, Kefa. I don't think she'd be able to live without you. Simo looked at his life's work in the pile in front of him. For the first time in forever, he could look forward towards the future.